Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here tonight. I love the way I love the way we put together nights like this. There's a lot of you involved. Isn't this a gorgeous table that we get to look at tonight? And Jocelyn, thank you. And for so many people that are working to make this a special night. So tonight is about food, right? Hope you all had dinner before you got here. We have a complicated relationship with food as Americans, don't we? You know, on one hand, we want to do the minimal amount of physical, we want to look good, we want to be thin, we want to be, look great, but we don't want to have to work very hard to do it. We think we can become rich and thin at the same time. Who doesn't want a little more chocolate in their diet, right? I'm a chocoholic. As a boy, I'd come home from school and it was Oreo cookies. I could eat all of them that I wanted, right, at that time. Then I had a paper route, so I'd be out there, working that off. And then my father loved chocolate ice cream, so that was what we had at night. So Oreos and chocolate ice cream would work well. That's a good idea. Our food groups included my mother made sure we had a 4-square meal, but we always had chocolate and, these good things going with it. We're more aware than ever of the things that go into our mouths. I'm seeing kale everywhere. I don't know about you. Kale is not, it used to be broccoli. Now, we have our vegetable of the month. And it appears to be kale. And it's those green drinks that taste like hay. I don't get that either exactly. But it's supposed to be good for you, right? To drink those things. God seems to like food. Did you hear the Old Testament reading? It was about a banquet, about as sumptuous as you could possibly get. Rich foods, really good foods, wine flowing, everything you could possibly want. That's the image. That's an image of the kingdom, actually. You can imagine being with Jesus in the kingdom, and it's like this. It's everything we could want. And we don't get fat, right? People called Jesus a glutton and a drunkard. I don't think, that he must have enjoyed eating, right? He must have enjoyed being with his friends and sitting down and enjoying that together. In Genesis, people are created as hungry. We're hungry when we're created. And remember, God gives us all these things that these are good. These are food for you. So the idea is that we're meant to be, to have hunger, and for God to provide the food for us to be filled. So we must take food into our bodies. I remember from communion in my old days, feed on him in your heart by faith with thanksgiving. Feeding, food is very important. So when we get to communion, it's a natural link that it's all about food. It's all about eating together. It's all about being filled with not only the physical, but with the spiritual presence of Jesus in our midst. When we come to communion, we are taking him into us. So, despite what we may feel about eating particular foods or what we should or shouldn't eat, our hunger remains. And actually, even after God has built into us not just a need for food, but a need for God. We have a hunger for God. We have a hunger for God to fill that hole, that need inside of us that only God can fill. Being humans, we try to fill it with all kinds of other things. But part of tonight is about being filled with letting our hunger be met by God. That God is there to meet our deepest hungers. So as utilitarian as we are, special meals still maintain a reverence. We don't eat like we used to at our house 5:30 every night. My father got home, Mom had, that's what it was. We all sat down and had meals together, and a lot of you did that. That's not happening as much. But still, meals have a very important role in our society. It hasn't totally gone. There's a certain reverence, especially when there's a special meal. Carol and I were out at a restaurant recently, and there was a family next to us, and it was Grandma's birthday. So everybody was there, all the generations, and they all ordered different meals, different things off the menu. So then they put them in the center of the table, and everybody's eating off of that. And Grandma's in the middle, and everybody's just kind of talking with her and that. And as it goes on, they share cards. They're passing cards to Grandma. They read every single one of them, to make sure that they could hear, that Grandma heard what they wanted to say. They came by and hugged her. It was very warm. It was very just a very warm, special kind of experience. And we were just kind of on the outside of it, just listening in. At the end, the waitress says, "So do you want boxes?" Everybody took a box. There was enough left over. It reminded me of the feeding of the 5,000, right? There's enough left over for everybody. There was every single person took a box. And they're putting all this stuff in there. And meanwhile, just, singing to grandmother and just all of that, celebrating all the generations together. So communion's very important to me. Coming here tonight, thinking about all the communion services that I've been a part of, that I've, from the time I was a little child and would go up front and be an adult, be with the my parents and be with the other adults, and how special that was. But through my years, having communion on youth retreats and youth mission trips, abroad in other countries where, they're telling me, what is it? How do you say the word for bread and wine in Russian or in Korean and all these other places where I've received communion. You might be thinking about where you've received communion. Tonight's like a reunion. It's all of those communions that we've experienced through our years, and some of us have had a lot of them. They're all folding in together tonight. It's like all of those people that we were with, those confirmation classes that we were with, some of us, and those times that we were with loved ones. Maybe it was at a sad event. Maybe it was at a wedding. Several weddings I've had communion. I had a wedding where she was Filipino Catholic and he was Turkish Muslim, and we had communion. And I was the celebrant. I'll never forget that one. I'm explaining communion to the Muslims. In the wedding, half of them came up. It was a powerful moment. Communion brings people together, doesn't it? It's something that speaks in a deeper level. We don't have to rationalize it. Nobody really understands it. Sometimes we say children need to understand more before they receive. Well, the thing is, there's a mystery connected here that we really don't want to get rid of. We can understand more about it, but we really don't ever get to the place of, I've got it. I've got this whole communion thing. God sent Jesus so we can know who really fills us. Jesus is filling us tonight. St. Augustine wrote these memorable words. I wanted to have you hear these words tonight. He said this about communion: "Behold what you are, become what you receive." Behold what you are, become what you receive. That's what he said about communion. Tonight, Behold what you are. Become what you receive. And tonight we remember a couple, the communion of saints is a part of communion, right? So the people that have gone before, our parents, our grandparents, our loved ones, people that, our mentors, our teachers, our pastors, people who have gone on, they're with us tonight. And a couple of people come to mind. One is Martin Luther King Jr., because it was his 50th anniversary of his passing next week. We think about how he gave himself for other people, how he poured his life, how he lived the gospel, how as much as anybody we've known, put his life on the line, lived what he believed, lived Jesus. And so, in a sense, Martin Luther King is with us tonight. You know who else is with us is Billy Graham. Just passed away a couple weeks ago. And I happened to read a little bit about his story. I thought you might want to hear it. He grew up in a farm in North Carolina and said his coming to Christ wasn't an emotional experience, but it was life-changing. He said he always dreamed that he could do things that he never could do, like be a professional baseball player. That didn't happen. Imagine Billy Graham with a baseball cap and all that. And he loved the farm. He grew up on a farm, and he always thought he and his brother would end up with the farm. That was what it was kind of like. That was what he assumed would. And he loved, he said, especially the dairy part of it. But that wasn't for him either. He said God had other plans. So he ended up going to Florida and went to a Bible school. And the school was surrounded by a golf course on the Hillsborough River. He remembered going out on a moonlit night and lying on the 18th green. And it was late at night. He got onto his knees. He said, I heard somebody, like, not really a voice, but it seemed like a call. And so he's on his knees. He said, Lord, I'll go where you want me to go. I'll be what you want me to be. And he said immediately he felt peace in his heart. So you may be saying, aha, this proves that God is on the golf course. That might be the takeaway from this sermon, right? Well, what a great witness, these two great leaders. But there's leaders in your lives, right? There's people that have led you to where you are tonight. There's people that have led you to Jesus, that have been examples and witnesses. They've shown you, they've put their lives out there for you. They're with you tonight. They're all with you tonight. So tonight Jesus meets us in this place. We eat and drink together as his family. We come together as his body. This is his body, the body of Christ, broken so we can all receive it. If it wasn't broken, we wouldn't all receive. No one is left out. All the generations, just like at that meal the other day, all the generations with Grandma and Grandpa, all of us. Everybody has a place at this table. No one is left out. This is the most open table there can be. His body broken feeds our deepest hunger. Our bodies are connected to his body. He's filling us. We need to be continually filled, which is why we don't take communion just once in our lives. We take it regularly. Our bodies are connected with his body. We're one in him. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. So Simone Weil said that we may run as fast as we can away from God, but when it is toward what is true, it is into the arms of Christ. Well, tonight we're running into the arms of Christ. Tonight we're running. We're all moving together towards him, ingesting what we most need. He is here giving his body for you and for the healing of the world. Behold what you are. Become what you receive. Behold what you are. Become what you receive.